Hello dear students. Till now we have discussed the concept of coordination compound, its IUPAC nomenclature, and we have discussed its isomerism. But how this coordinate bonding occurs? What are the concepts that lead to formation of a coordinate bonding? For this there are three theories. The first one, Werner's theory. Second one, valence bond theory, which we also call as VBT, about which you have already studied in your class 11th. And the third is crystal field theory. We have to study about all these three theories. Crystal field theory is also called as CFT. Okay, so we'll begin with the first one, Werner's theory. How do Werner's theory explain the bonding, coordinate bonding? Let us consider one example. A complex of cobalt in which ammonia is ligand and chloride is counter ion. Now Werner says this outside part, which is counter ion, that can be called as primary valency. So the number which is outside coordinate sphere, that is called as primary valency, and it indicates oxidation state of central metal atom. According to Werner, the primary valency is the ionizable part. You have to be very careful for the numbers. The number which is indicated outside coordinate sphere, it indicates primary valency. Whereas the number which is inside the coordinate sphere, that indicates secondary valency. Now the secondary valency indicates coordination number of the complex. Okay, the secondary valency also indicates the number of ligands that are attached to central metal atom. So according to Werner's theory, a complex exhibits two types of valencies, primary valency and secondary valency. Both valencies have its importance. Primary valency shows oxidation state of central metal atom, whereas secondary valency indicates the coordination number, or I can say it indicates the number of ligands attached to central metal atom. Now there is one very simple trick to remember this, as there can be questions, especially 1 mark question or 2 mark question based on this concept, that what is the primary valency, what is the secondary valency in the given coordinate complex. Simply we have to remember this one, MSP. P is always outside, S is always inside. So the inside one is secondary valency and outside is the primary valency. So this is a trick to remember which valency indicates primary and which number indicates the secondary valency. Now Werner says that there are two valencies, primary and secondary valency, and the central metal has to fulfill both these valencies. That means in the given example, cobalt has to fulfill this number 6 also, that as well as number 3 also. Although Werner's theory gives us the concept about the different types of valency, the ionizable part and the non-ionizable part, but still it has certain drawbacks. So what are the drawbacks of Werner's theory? The very first one, the magnetic moment cannot be explained. Coordinate compounds have its own magnetic moment, and these magnetic moments cannot be explained with the help of Werner's theory. Secondly, this theory also can't explain the color of the complex. Coordinate complexes are colored complexes, but Werner's theory is unable to explain the phenomena why the coordinate complexes shows various colors. So since Werner's theory failed on these two aspects, another theory came into existence, that is valence bond theory, VBT. What are the postulates of valence bond theory? According to valence bond theory, it considers ligand as lone electron pair, or I'll say lone pair acceptor, lone pair donor, and therefore it acts as Lewis base. On the other hand, the central metal atom acts as lone pair acceptor, and therefore it acts as Lewis acid. Now when ligand is donating the electron and central metal atom is accepting, there is certain specific spatial arrangement, and that spatial arrangement, or I will say structure, can be correlated to hybridization, about which we have already studied in our class 11th. So valence bond theory helps us to correlate the structure and hybridization. It also helps us to calculate magnetic properties, but it is a more experimental theory, I will say. Now, how the structure can be correlated to hybridization? Not only that, we'll see how it can be correlated to coordination number also. If the coordination number of the complex is 4, then there are two types of hybridization possible. One is sp3 and another is dsp2. In both these cases, structure will be different. If it shows sp3 hybridization, the complex will exhibit tetrahedral structure. On the other hand, if dsp2 is there, then it will be square planar structure. If the complex exhibits coordination number 5, then the possible hybridization is sp3d, and the possible structure will be trigonal bipyramidal. If the coordination number is 6, then there are two types of conditions possible, sp3d2 or d2sp3. Now in both cases, the structure exhibited will be octahedral. You have to learn this table, the coordination number, then which type of hybridization it can show, and which type of structure it can exhibit. Our main focus will be on this number 6. There is a difference between sp3d2 and d2sp3 hybridization. Now this question is asked so many times in competitive exams. So with respect to that, you must know this difference. Now suppose sp3d2 type of hybridization is there, then outer d orbital is involved in the hybridization, or I will say nd orbital is involved in the hybridization. For example, if the hybridization is between 3s, 3p, 3d orbital, then we'll say it is sp3do hybridization. Which type of ligands show this hybridization? Weak ligands. They show sp3d2 hybridization, and they are called as high spin complex. Now why they are called as high spin complex, that we'll discuss just after this topic. Now d2sp3 hybridization. In d2sp3 hybridization, inner d orbital is involved in hybridization, or I will say n-1 d is involved in hybridization. For example, it will be 3d, 4s, 4p. So inner d is getting involved in hybridization, So it will be D2sp3 hybridization. Now the question is, which type of ligand shows this hybridization? I will say strong ligands. So strong ligand shows D2sp3 type of hybridization, and they form low spin complex. Now when we have come to know that there are two types of ligand, weak ligand and strong ligand. The question is how to identify strong ligand and weak ligand. Now here is a trick to identify strong filled ligand and weak filled ligand. If the coordinate bonding occurs through atom like carbon or nitrogen, then it will be strong filled ligand. For example, cyanide, amine, carbonyl, ADTA, etc. These three are the main ones. Whereas if the coordinate bonding do not occur through atom like carbon and nitrogen, then it will be called as a weak filled ligand. For example, halogen, water, etc. You simply remember this trick, that if the coordinate bonding occurs through carbon or nitrogen, then it will be a strong filled ligand. Now when it is a strong filled ligand, it causes the pairing of the electron. Since it causes the pairing of the electron, it uses inner d orbital, and therefore we call it as inner orbital complex, and we say it undergoes D2sp3 hybridization. Now since it causes pairing of the electron, the magnetic moment reduces and we say it's a low spin complex. Now weak filled ligand, since they are weak filled ligand, they are not capable of causing the pairing. They do not cause pairing, therefore they use outer orbital for hybridization like sp3d2, and therefore we call them as outer orbital complex. Now since they do not cause pairing, there will be many unpaired electrons left in them, and we'll call it as high spin complex. Now when we are clear with the concepts of like strong filled ligand and weak filled ligand, we'll solve some examples based on VBT. We'll begin with the examples with those complexes which show coordination number 4. Now in this particularly I am going to take the examples of nickel complexes, as nickel complexes are frequently asked question in JEE. But before that, we'll have certain tricks or steps to solve VBT. The very first is we have to calculate oxidation state of central metal atom, which we have already seen how to calculate in the IUPAC nomenclature. Second is we find out the nature of ligand. Just now we have learned how we can know the nature of ligand. Third, we have to remember that if it is a strong filled ligand, then it will cause pairing, and generally it goes for D2sp3 hybridization. On the other hand, if it is a weak filled ligand, then it do not causes pairing, and it uses outer d orbital for hybridization. So using all these concepts, we are going to solve first of all the complexes of nickel. I will take the example of nickel CN4 minus 2. I told you that the examples of nickel, all the examples of nickel, they are important one, as they are frequently asked questions. Okay. So what's the first step to calculate the oxidation state? So let us calculate the oxidation state of nickel. X plus cyanide is ligand with minus word charge into 4, that is equal to minus 2, and therefore the oxidation state of nickel is plus 2. Now what is the configuration of nickel in the ground state? Nickel with atomic number 28, configuration is argon 3d8, 4s2, and 4p is lying vacant. If I want to show its orbital representation, (3d8) 4s2, 4p is lying vacant. So in D there are 5 electrons. We are doing this filling according to all the basic rules we have learned in class 11. 4s2. Now the oxidation state of nickel in this is +2. So nickel in +2 will lose electron from 4s2. So now the configuration becomes 3d8, 4s0, 4p0. The orbital representation, now there will be no electron in 4s as it will be lost. And this is the configuration of 3d8. What's the next step? We see the nature of ligand. The approaching ligand is a cyanide, which is a strong ligand. So what it will do? It will cause the pairing of the electron. How the pairing will occur? This electron moves here. We know the 3d orbitals are degenerate orbitals. So degeneration increases, stability increases because of the pairing. Okay. So now the configuration changes. Configuration do not changes. This arrangement changes. Now this will get paired up. The initial remains as it is. 4s remains vacant. 4p remains vacant. Total 4 ligands are approaching. So we need 4 orbitals. And I will say each cyanide ligand will give its lone pair of electron. And this dsp2 hybridization will take place. In each orbital, each cyanide will donate 1 lone pair. Got it? So I will say it's a dsp2 hybridization. So what are the characteristics of this complex? The first one, it has shown dsp2 hybridization. Second one, since it's a dsp2 hybridization, we know its structure is square planar. Third, it shows coordination number 4. And since there is no unpaired electron left out, it is diamagnetic in nature. This is how valence bond theory helps us to identify or predict the magnetic nature of the complex. So it has a square planar structure. I will show it here. Nickel coordinately bonded to 4 cyanide ligand. Nickel at center and 4 cyanide atoms at 4 corners of the square with -2 charge. Now this whole question is asked for 2 to 3 marks. You need not to write the theory part of this. Simply if you write this explanation, you get full marks for this in your board exams. And questions based on VBT is a sure question. The next example which we are going to discuss is again that of nickel but with chloride as a ligand. So first step, to calculate oxidation number, to go through its electronic configuration and do its electronic configuration according to its oxidation state. Now we'll focus on the ligand. The approaching ligand is a chloride which is a weak filled ligand. So it do not causes pairing and therefore these two orbitals, the electrons remains unpaired. So the one which will undergo hybridization is this one, sp3 hybridization. Each one getting a lone pair of electron from chloride. And therefore I will say it's a sp3 hybridization. So what are the characteristics of the complex? The first one, it has shown sp3 hybridization. Secondly, it is paramagnetic in nature. Why? Because it contains 2 unpaired electrons. Thirdly, its coordination number is 4. And fourth, since it's sp3 hybridization, its structure is square planar. So in square planar structure, nickel as a central atom and 4 chloride will be arranged in tetrahedral manner with a bond angle of 109 degree 28 minutes. So in the previous example, we have seen the complex of nickel with cyanide, which was a strong field ligand, and therefore the hybridization changed, the structure changed. In this example, chloride, which is a weak field ligand, hybridization changes, magnetic nature changes, structure changes. We'll see one more example of nickel. The next example which I have discussed here is the complex of nickel again, carbonyl as a ligand. This is very important and interesting example. Oxidation state of nickel is 0. In all those coordinate complexes where carbonyl is a ligand, the oxidation state of central metal atom will be always 0. Remember this trick. So nickel is in 0 oxidation state, so 3d8 remains as it is. Now these two electrons shifts in 3d because approaching ligand is carbonyl. It will cause pairing, and therefore these two electrons from 4s, they shift to this 3d8 giving 3d10 configuration. S becomes vacant, so it undergoes sp3 hybridization, each getting 1 lone pair from carbonyl compound. And due to this exception, this is an important example. So what are the characteristics? It undergoes sp3. It is diamagnetic in nature because there is no unpaired electron, tetrahedral nature, and coordination number 4. So it's a 109 degree 28 minute bond angle. This becomes the structure. Okay, now see both these examples. The complex of nickel, both these are complexes of nickel. One is of chloride as a ligand, another is a carbonyl as a ligand. Both undergoes sp3 hybridization. Both has coordination number 4. Both are tetrahedral in nature. Sorry, this is not square planar, tetrahedral. Then where comes the difference? One is paramagnetic, another is diamagnetic. Now this question is asked so many times, not only in board exams but in your JEE exams also, that why there is a difference in the magnetic properties. Very simple answer, because of the difference in ligand. Strong field ligand will cause pairing and the weak field ligand do not cause pairing. So all these three examples of nickel are very important. Make a tabular form for these complexes of nickel, showing its hybridization, showing its paramagnetic nature and structure. Next we are going to discuss complexes with coordination number 6. I have taken the example of COF6, that is central metal atom cobalt and ligand as a fluoride. So very first step, calculate the oxidation state of cobalt. It is +3. Now remember, cobalt always forms coordinate compound in +3 oxidation state. Any other oxidation state of cobalt is not suitable, or I will say it will not at all form coordination compounds in oxidation state other than +3. Okay. So what's the atomic number of cobalt? 27. Electronic configuration argon 3d7, 4s2, 4p0. Orbital representation, 7 electrons, distribute them in 3d orbital. 2 electrons in 4s, 4p is lying vacant. So 4 is 2. Okay. Now cobalt is in +3 oxidation state in this case. So it becomes 3d6. 4 is 0, 4p0 configuration. Now in this case, orbital representation, 4s will be vacant, 4p will be also vacant. Now there are 6 electrons in 3d. Now the approaching ligand is fluoride, which is a weak field ligand. It will not cause pairing, and therefore they have to use the next orbital for hybridization, which is 4d, as it is lying vacant. So that's why I told you that time, when there is a weak field ligand, it do not causes pairing. It will use outer d orbital for hybridization. So this sp and 2 from D will be hybridized, each one getting electron from fluoride, a pair of electron. So what it is showing us? It is showing us sp3d2 hybridization. So what are the characteristics? It's a dsp3 hybridization, and since it has used outer d orbital, I will say it is outer orbital complex. The presence of 4 unpaired electron creates a high magnetic moment. If you calculate its mu, it will be very high, and therefore I will say it's a high spin complex. We know its coordination number is 6, and most importantly, since there is a presence of 4 unpaired electron, it is paramagnetic in nature, and its structure will be octahedral. So these are the characteristics: structure cobalt, octahedral. So 4 fluoride occupying the place of a square, and 2 fluoride will be at equatorial position. So now this whole question is of 3 marks. 2 or 3 marks. Question can be framed in any way. Why COF6 minus 3 is a high spin complex? Why COF6 minus 3 is paramagnetic in nature? Why COF6 minus 3 shows dsp3 hybridization? So any question can be asked. If you write only this much, you get full marks in the exam. The next example, which has coordination number 6, is that of cobalt with ammonia as a ligand, CONH6 3+. Now in this, we'll calculate oxidation state of cobalt plus 3. Again, I am repeating the trick that cobalt always forms coordination compounds with plus 3 oxidation state. So we have calculated its electronic configuration. Approaching ligand being ammonia, strong field ligand. Therefore, it causes the pairing of the electron. All these electrons will shift. And therefore, you get 3d6 configuration. As a result, these two orbitals are now available for hybridization. So, these two 4s and 3 of 4p will be used for hybridization, giving us a d2sp3 hybridization, each one getting a lone pair from ammonia. So since inner d orbital is used for hybridization, we'll call it as inner orbital complex. Now since there is no unpaired electron left out, magnetic moment reduces to a great extent, and therefore I will say it's a low spin complex. It's octahedral. You can see the shape octahedral. It's diamagnetic in nature because of the absence of unpaired electron and coordination number 6. So when you are solving the examples using valence bond theory, simply remember two things, that first of all, find out the oxidation state of central metal atom. Second is find out the nature of the ligand. If it's a strong field ligand, it will cause pairing. If it is a weak field ligand, it will not cause pairing. If you remember these two steps, you will be able to solve any example from valence bond theory. As all the examples of valence bond theory, they are important one, and it's a sure question in your board exams. Although we are able to solve a lot of examples using VBT, VBT has limitations also. The very first, it involves number of assumptions. It does not give any interpretation of magnetic field. It does not explain the color, which was the drawback in Werner's theory also. It does not explain spectral properties as well as thermodynamic and inner stability. It is not able to distinguish between strong field ligand and weak field ligand. Okay, we are able to identify which is a strong field and which is weak field, but the distinction is not possible using this theory. And therefore came in existence crystal field theory, which we'll be discussing in our next video. So today we have seen Werner's theory and valence bond theory. Based on these two theories, solve the given module. Here are some questions based on Werner's theory and valence bond theory. Go through the video carefully. Go through the module, read your NCERT and try to solve this question. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.